order the July 7th, 2010 Ann Arbor DDA monthly meeting. Roll call. Gary Boren.
Here.
Newton Clark.
Here.
Chris Collins.
Here.
Lee Gunn.
Here.
Jennifer Wall. Roger Hewitt.
Here.
John Heapja.
Here.
Jill Lowenstein.
Here.
John Rowat.
Here.
Steve Dorr.
Here.
Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business, second order of business is audience participation. We have 4 slots, 4 minutes apiece, and they are all spoken for at this point. Our first speaker is Lindsay Jean Hard, excuse me, Real Time Farms.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see familiar faces.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I want to thank you for giving me these few minutes to tell you about a new company that I'm a part of in Ann Arbor. I'm here today because we really need your support and your help to get the word out to as many people as possible about this exciting new live local food guide called Real Time Farms. So our mission is to excite and educate people about where they can find fresh local sources of food, bringing transparency to the food web. We believe that when people know where their food comes from, it leads naturally to choices that are healthiest for themselves and for the environment. So as I said, it's a live local food guide, and this is a screenshot of what it might look like if you go to the homepage. And our goals are to get people to discover and contribute, discover farm stands and farmers markets near them, as well as what's fresh in real time around them. And the contribute piece is that everyone can share pictures of their local farmers markets or farm stands, and they can add or edit information about those farmers markets as well. This is a screenshot of what a market page might look like. And while we launched nationally, downtown Ann Arbor is our flagship location. And as evidenced by Ann Arbor's commitment to local food, sustainability, and entrepreneurship with groups like Think Local First, the 10% Washtenaw campaign, Spark, and Slow Food Huron Valley, among countless others, it was obviously the perfect place for us to start. Overall, the site has gotten about 8,000 hits and over 51,000 page views in the just over 8 weeks since we launched. And the downtown Ann Arbor Farmers Market is getting the most hits of any market in the country with about 3,600 page views. As you can see from this screenshot, every market has its own unique page with pertinent info like the date, the time, where you can find it, and you can see what's available in a list of the goods as well as photos and the vendors. So why use Real Time Farms? Well, other websites might be able to tell me that mushrooms should be at the market right now based on a seasonality chart. But you can go to Real Time Farms and see that mushrooms are available and what types and what vendors. And aren't these mushrooms much more interesting and appealing than the mushrooms on the last slide? As I said, Real Time Farms is the only site with a real-time live feed of pictures. Real-time information provides repeated prompting to visit your local farmer's market, and images spark curiosity about fruits and vegetables that you might not have seen or tried before, and it gets people excited about fresh local food. And since we're community-driven, it engages everyone in their local food web. So currently on the site, you can search for specific ingredients, farmers markets, and vendors, and the site's completely free for farmers markets, farmers, and consumers, and it will always stay that way. But in case you're wondering how we plan to sustain ourselves, we're working to expand the site to offer information-rich pages to restaurants and grocers that source locally. They'll pay a monthly fee to have their page on Real Time Farms, which will provide customers with a plethora of information, such as linking their menu items back to the farms that they're sourced from. By the end of the summer, you'll be able to search for basil, find out how it was grown, find out who grew it, where you can buy it, whether it's at a farmer's market, farm stand, or grocer, and what restaurant then sources it to make their caprese salad. So you can see we plan to become the country's most engaging, comprehensive, and local food guide. Thank you for your time, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Grace Singleton from Zingerman's.
Swapping out, so
Our next speaker is Paul Saginaw from Zingerman's.
I may look a little like Grace, but I'm not. Thank you very much. Great to be here with you guys. You know, a bit of trivia. Both of our organizations, the DDA and Zingerman's, both started in 1982. Main Street was pretty dead, tired, sleepy back then, and you know, the mall had kind of knocked the wind out of it. And You guys have contributed a lot over the years, and certainly, you know, your mission is to spend public dollars to spark private investment. You've helped us with the Go Pass, the wayfinding project, paying for energy audits, pavers in front of our store, and most recently, but certainly not insignificant at all, a handicap spot at Community High. And I thank you for that. Our mission, we started in 1982 also. There was me, my partner Ari Weinsweig, and 2 employees. We did a little under $100 our first day. We're going to close out our 28th fiscal year at the end of this month. We now have 16 partners of over 8 businesses and a little over 600 employees. Our mission is to provide the Zingerman experience to enrich the lives of as many people as we possibly can. For our part, we believe we are the anchor to Carytown and the Ann Arbor Farmers Market. We've created over 200 jobs in Ann Arbor at the deli. We've attracted and we continue to attract more visitors to Ann Arbor than any other single for-profit business. And in 29 years almost 29 years of commitment to the community, we have taken significant action in the social, the educational, and the cultural vitality of the community, contributing every year 10% of our profits back into Washtenaw County nonprofit community. We are the founders and the major funders of Food Gatherers. We funded the community kitchen at the Delana Center, and we continue to do that. We've also built 2 major additions over that 28 years. For the last almost 4 years, we've been working on, at times struggling through, our largest, most ambitious, most costly project that we've ever attempted in the history of our business. We believe this project is in the sweet spot of the DDA strategy. We're a commercial establishment that plays an immeasurable role in shaping the economic, social, and physical character and health of downtown by creating a sense of uniqueness and place. We are undertaking a capital improvement that is geared towards increasing downtown commercial activity. And this is an appropriate private project that's going to increase the commercial activity and strengthen the Carytown businesses. We believe we help to promote. Is that the end of my time?
No.
Oh.
It's the elevator.
Oh. We help to promote Ann Arbor's unique identity as a compelling business asset. This project is going to contribute to economic stability, physical stability, environmental stability, and social sustainability. We are asking you to help us. We're asking you to partner with us on this project. We believe we are a good partner. We trust and we follow the process. We understand the importance of civility. We follow through. We keep our promises. We act with integrity, and if you do decide to provide us with the help that we are asking for, we will be very, very good stewards of those public monies. You will not be embarrassed, and you'll have a project that you're proud of. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Now, Grace Singleton from Zingerman's.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. My name is Grace Singleton. I'm Paul's partner at the deli. I've been there for about 8 years. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we're looking to do with this project and why we're looking to expand. You know, we have been, as Paul said, in Carytown District and in Ann Arbor for almost 29 years now, and our goal is to continue to be here for another 29. When we started, we had 2 staff people, and we're now up to 170. Just in the past 5 years, we've grown 35 employees, just because we've had consistent and long-term growth year over year. When we first started, we probably did maybe 2,000 sandwiches. We estimated last year we made 300,000 sandwiches out of that same little kitchen, that same little space that we've had from day one. As we've grown, we've had to add capacity, right? So we've had to expand. But what we've found ourselves doing is we add small little pieces to change our operations and to add on to it when we can. And so they're little one-off things. You kind of move around the equipment line. You change, the way the flow of equipment is to fit more storage in. You add an outside cooler. You add an outside freezer. You put the tent up behind the next door to add more seating. And they all give us more capacity, and they allow us to give better service to our guests and better service to our staff. But what happens is it's kind of higgledy-piggledy, and this little piece is all put on the site, and it isn't really attractive when you kind of look at the whole site. It isn't something that's going to last long-term. There's only so much you can do. You can't add restrooms, and they're really maxed out on how much seating we can have. So the reason the line goes out the door and the reason that people end up waiting so long for the sandwiches isn't because we can't produce more, it's because we're at capacity, and you can't fit any more slices of bread on the grill, and you can't fit any more seats anymore for someone to sit down. So our goal is to kind of look at this project as a whole and where we want to be in another 29 years and add it as one beautiful, attractive build-out that really fits with the site, it fits with the flow of everything that we need, and it gives better service to our guests as well as to our staff, because they really don't have workspaces that fit now. They're very overcrowded. We want it to be a comprehensive plan that develops the entire site, that has more seating and restrooms, that has a larger kitchen and storage areas. We want to get the bulk of all the hard, heavy kitchen production out of the deli building, which is the oldest historic building, and get that out of there and make it more retail so it's going to last longer, because we're kind of beating it up right now. We also want to preserve the outdoor seating area. We want to have a larger employee work area and offices. We want to incorporate a lot of energy efficiency and green design features. There's a lot of ways in restaurants. They're very, very high users of energy, and there's a lot of water usage issues and a lot of heat capture issues that you can, if you design it right and kind of start with that end in mind, you can really, really have a strong impact on the environment and the energy that you use. We are committed to the Ann Arbor area and the Carytown district and have been, and we want to continue to contribute to building a strong economy in this area and our city and the future success of the community. We want to add we're estimating about 40 more jobs in the next 5 years after we do this. I think that's probably a low estimate, but that one seemed very realistic compared to past sales and increases of staff. We'll have more profits to commit back to the community. And we also continue to utilize local companies wherever we can for our outside services, whether it's accounting or insurance or people to service our equipment. We always rely on the people we've had relationships with for the past 28 years. There's a lot of challenges to building in Ann Arbor, and building on this dense little site, we need to stay open. Just so that people don't forget about Zingerman's, we want to stay open and keep guests coming. We also need a cash flow. So building on that site and staying open is logistically challenging. Our contractor says it's going to be a surgical nature of trying to do that. And we're very committed to keeping the deli and the next door cafe, which are kind of the front pieces, but then we're also needing to preserve that annex building, which is set back a little bit, and the cost of doing so, it's pretty high per square foot, and it really adds a lot of complexity and difficulty to the site in time and money. We believe that saving that building is going to allow this project to be built and go forward, and we really want to stay in this area and stay on that site. But to do that, it costs a lot of money, so we really appreciate you considering helping us with this. We're at a point where expanding is a necessity, and we're at capacity, and your support will help us not just build on the site, but build something that will last longer into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our last speaker, Brad Mikas.
Hi, my name is Brad Mikas, and before I begin, I just want to say that the downtown looks really good. I come up here and criticize a lot, but I mean, downtown looks really nice compared to a lot of other cities, so it's doing a pretty good job. But it could be better, and so that's minor. I have like 4 or 5 main points. The first one is about the Zingermans. I read the resolution, and it says that the TIF, I hope I misunderstand, it says that the TIF is going to be increased by $407,000 over 15 years. The way it's written, it seems like that's not discounted. Like it's $400,000 over the lifespan of 15 years. So the DDA is going to give Zingerman's $400,000 right now. There's a disconnect there because the time value of money, $400,000 in over 15 years is worth a lot less than $400,000 now. So like the previous speaker said, Zingerman's is a pretty successful company. They should be able to fund most of it. The one that I would cut is the $160,000 for the LEED certification. I think that they should be able to do it themselves. But the parking, the sidewalks, signage, water retention, all that, that's probably a good use of money. So that's the Zingerman's. The PILOT, the payment in lieu of parking. It says that there's going to be 25% surcharge on the standard contract rate. My question is, was there any cost analysis? Is there any spreadsheets available to look at to see how that rate was figured? Because according to the budget, I got some numbers. According to the budget, the contract is $130 a month surcharge of 25%, so it's $160 a month. Over 12 months, it's about $2,000 a year. Okay. The recent underground parking structure budgeted $59 million for 677 spots, so that's about $90,000 per spot. Depending on how long the contract is, the cost of capital, the rate of increase, it's nowhere near the cost of replacing the cost of replacing the new spaces. So it seems like there's going to be a huge subsidy for new construction. Could be good, but should be listed out. Could you tell me how much time I have left?
You have 1 minute and 30 seconds left.
Okay, I'll be fast. The budget, I didn't notice where the budget was changed. If someone could explain what was changed and why. May parking report. It's the third month in a row of declining patron year over year. Is there any analysis done on that? And then the last bit, it's kind of complicated, but last meeting, someone had asked the difference between the change in revenue versus the change in parking, assuming that the prices were the same. I looked at the numbers, again, I don't have all the information, but my estimates, I did it by quarter, and it looks like patron volume has been increased. Well, it's higher, but it's decreasing. So it's higher than it was last year, but quarter over quarter, there's a declining trend. Revenue is negative. Like the first quarter, year over year percent change, negative 4%. Second quarter, negative 7%. Third quarter, negative 7.5%. So if you keep the prices the same, assuming the same patron level, the revenue has been decreasing. So why? I mean, patrons are going up, revenue is going down. I have a few ideas. I don't know if I have enough time, but possibly there's people are spending less time at a spot. I know there's some figures there. I didn't really look at them, but I mean, maybe you don't have enough money. You don't have a lot of money. I have some further suggestions, but hopefully you can figure something out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have reports from city boards and commissions. Ray Getter from the Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council.
As usual, last night, the Citizens Advisory Council covered an awful lot of issues because we're going to take August off, I guess, as you are as well. And two of those issues I'll cover very quickly. One has to do with our continued concern with regard to Courthouse Square. Last night, we're in the process of developing an emergency call list for people in Courthouse Square so that they will know who to call in case of any kinds of problems that exist within the building. Because currently now that doesn't exist with the management leaving at 5 o'clock. And also I met with Carolyn Hastings. She was retiring from the position of Senior Housing Bureau for Seniors this month, and met her replacement. And we think that we can work out a better system where Housing Bureau for Seniors might be in the future more involved with regard to Courthouse Square. The second item that I want to cover very quickly is in relationship to something that's being discussed here today, and that is that last night we affirmed our continued support for the Zingermans as a very special, a very unique case in which we encourage any support that will help them to work out the issues of zoning and historic preservation so they can continue their important role as a center for business activity in the downtown area. They are a very special asset to the Carytown area of the downtown, and the Citizens Advisory Council's members generally support your consideration of providing them assistance in whatever form in their attempt to seek brownfield money for their expansion. But last night, most of our evening was related to those efforts that you have with regard to implementing and developing a comprehensive parking transportation demand management program and seeking new directions and solutions for the downtown that will not involve building any more parking structures. And we're certainly pleased with Stanley Smith's initiative and leadership and successful support for a residential parking permit system in the 04th Ward, which will be followed very soon with one in the South University area, and will be a part, really, of a whole system of parking permits around the downtown area.
You went through last night.
Right? Okay. Good. I left.
About 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Good. But that would be a part, really, of an overall plan, and this has to fit into the nature of what it is that we're going to be doing with regard to an overall parking transportation plan for the city as a whole. And we're very interested, and some of us are involved very much in relationship to that with the Fuller Road project, the Fuller Road Transportation Center, which will have major implications for the future of the downtown as well as the entire community. And we hope to involve ourselves in all the issues relating to the Fuller project, as well as the connectors that will eventually bring people to and from the downtown. We expect a lot of meetings to take place really in the process of the next couple of years with regard to those kinds of issues and beyond that. And we are not supportive certainly of any parking structures being built downtown, but future parking must be a part of a comprehensive plan that involves other creative alternatives. And of course, that's exactly what you're doing. And I'm watching the process as it's working itself out. And you're doing a very good job with a very tough subject that's going to take some time to develop. But it's very important to us that it includes adding more downtown residents than we have now, who may be less likely to depend upon auto transportation. And it also involves putting our downtown surface parking lots to better use. Of course, you're discussing that as well. We've always advocated that, as well as other properties which may not be surface parking lots in the downtown. And as part of that effort, the CAC strongly supports the DDA taking a leading role in creating a process for the development of an area plan for the locations relating to the library lot. It's a very good place to start, and right now it's sitting doing nothing. The library, of course, is the major focus there, but also the Blake Transit Center is a major focus. And I know that you're currently working with regard to AATA with regard to that. And there will be public meetings that will take place with regard to what happens on Blake. But Blake won't be developed, the library won't be developed without a comprehensive plan that includes some mixed-use development of significant density both on the library lot and also the YMCA. And we hope that you're going to be moving in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, status of task force efforts with DDA membership. The Library Lot RFP Advisory Committee still has not met since our last board meeting, and so therefore I have nothing to report. The committee to discuss a mutually beneficial agreement with the city. Who is doing that? Roger?
There's actually two meetings. One meeting of the committee, which took place on the second Monday of June, which will be our standing meeting, second Monday of the month at 8:30 in the morning right here at the DDA offices. We discussed the feedback that the board gave during its board retreat, and we, both city council members and the DDA board members gave directive to their staffs to come up with a list of public parking policies that would be involved in the DDA operating the entire public parking system throughout the city. So the staffs are both organizations are going to come back and look at what additional public policy decisions would be involved in that parking management. And we also are directed Susan to come up with by hopefully September, a detailed plan on what the DDA being essentially the engine for the redevelopment of the city-owned service parking lots, what that plan would look like. We talked about that some, that there would be real estate aspects to it, economic development aspects to it, and planning aspects to it. So Susan's going to be drafting that and presenting it to the committee hopefully by September. And we are also requesting that it be staff members from both organizations at all these meetings, so that when we have questions or issues, they can take those back and come up with answers to them. The next meeting is next Monday at 8:30 right here. Also last night there was a council work session to discuss exactly the issues that we brought up on the agreement between the city and the DDA. And I gave a number of descriptions of what we were thinking about. There was general support for the agreement. One council member was opposed to the idea of the DDA managing parking outside of the DDA area, but the rest of the council seemed to be supportive of that concept. There was some concern that separating community standards and parking enforcement would not be cost effective. There was a fair amount of concern about that, so I think that's something that the committee will be taking up. There was generally support for DDA being the engine to drive the redevelopment of the city-owned surface parking lots. There were a number of questions, but there didn't seem to be any opposition to that conceptually. And I think that's a brief summary of what went on. Certainly, Sandy, if you have anything to add. John?
I think that's a good characterization of what was talked about. I think I'd be a little more cautious about the takeover of the managing the process around redevelopment of city lots. I think there was a little caution there in wanting to see that fleshed out a little more substance to exactly what that would entail, and a little more time to think about it. Perhaps.
Yeah, clearly this is just bringing up the issue, and Susan, again, is going to be producing a fairly detailed document of what that would look like. I certainly assured council that they would be making any decisions on those, and there would be periodic steps throughout the process where we would take recommendations to council for their approval or denial or modification, and that there certainly would be public process involved and public hearings involved in anything that we would be doing. But it's that conceptually there doesn't seem to be a stop sign in this way, but there certainly are a lot of details to be fleshed out about it.
Indeed, I think maybe the word choice of engine is too strong, but maybe facilitator is a little bit more of what the flavors that we heard.
I was just following the statement of your respected fellow council member.
I think that's
You did a fine job.
Newcomb has a question for you.
One of the two items that have a time component that will happen during our break, were they discussed at either our meeting, their meeting, or at the work session? The Village Green and the permit fees, which are both tied and related.
Yes, we brought those both up at the committee level with City Council as a concern.
What's your take?
The take on Village Green was that they thought they would have an answer within a month. That was, I believe that's the statement that I heard at the meeting. There wasn't a lot of response to the concern about I believe it was the bond fund or the.
Was it brought up at the work session last night?
Yes, it was not brought up at the work session last night. No.
It
was brought up at the mutually beneficial committee level.
Sandy, do you have any thoughts on timing relative to us not meeting in August and reconvening in September with potentially?
I believe this committee is going to continue to meet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have dates for?
The next meeting would be next Monday, which I don't have a calendar.
It's the second Monday of every month at 8:30.
Yes, the 12th.
12th at 8:30.
12th at 8:30.
Correct.
So we've got
Russ
a
is
schedule.
also- Did I miss anything, Russ?
You were perfect.
Okay.
Is that everything?
Yeah, that's everything.
All right, any more questions? Thank you, Roger. Approval of minutes, and we'll do this in one step. Both our minutes from the retreat of May 28th and our monthly meeting of June 2nd.
I will move approval of those
Lee,
two meetings.
Seconded by John Mowat. Are there any corrections to either of those minutes? All those in favor? Aye. The minutes are approved. Subcommittee reports, Operations Committee, Roger Hewitt.
Okay, we have 3 resolutions today. We've had a fair amount of discussion involved. First resolution on page 9. Resolution approving a contribution in support of a brownfield grant for Zingerman's Deli's expansion. I'd like to move the resolution to the board.
Is there a second? Second by Sandy. Discussion. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I'll just briefly getting to the resolves. The DDA, there's an estimated TIF contribution over the next 15 years of the Zingerman's expansion of approximately $407,000. The DDA is pledging to spend approximately that amount of money on public improvements in the immediate vicinity of Zingerman's Deli, as well as funding the LEED certification. There is no time frame on when those improvements will be done, other than sometime in the next 15 years. And there is no specific listing of what we'll be doing, but generally we're looking at parking and related sidewalk and curb improvements.
Newcomb?
Due to a few indirect and potentially direct conflicts, I'm going to be recusing myself from the discussion. So I'm going to go grab a Zingerman's brownie and hide in the bathroom.
Be gone.
I similarly have to recuse myself, and so I will
Okay.
sit down.
Further discussion? Sandy?
For the brownfield dollars, and I guess at the MEDC level, they'd like to see the local contribution from the DDAs being a TIF waiver. And I guess that there's some discussion about whether or not we would choose to do that rather than accept the TIF and do the grant instead. I don't understand the finer points other than the point that money today is different than money over 15 years. I mean, I certainly understand that, but I was wondering if you had any discussion about the wisdom of rather than foregoing the TIF, doing the grant instead.
Well, it was discussion. At first, I should point out that this came to the Operations Committee. It probably more correctly should have gone to partnerships, but there was a time consideration, and ours is the only committee that met before this board meeting, so there was a time sensitivity. As you probably know, and I'm sure you do know, we used to do grants of TIF money to initially stimulate development downtown. Those were abolished by the board, I'm guessing about 3 or 4 years ago, when it became clear that any grant of TIF funds, related to TIF funds, was essentially a subjective decision. And why one project would qualify and another one wouldn't depended frequently on how strong an advocate there were for a particular project. And we felt that development had been stimulated in the downtown. We were seeing new buildings coming online, and it was proper for the DDA to be spending its public funds on public projects. So we have looked, although we are all very sympathetic toward Zingerman's project, we are looking at ways of spending this new TIF revenue on public improvements and things that would directly benefit the public rather than a private entity. My personal concern is that if we start doing that, we again open ourselves up to requests from every potentially new project downtown, and we get back into trying to make subjective decisions about which projects we should support and which projects we shouldn't support. So that's why we took this approach of putting the money into public benefits.
Okay. Further discussion? Jennifer?
I have a couple questions. This seems to me to be a little bit different than the partnerships grants in that they're asking for a match for a brownfield application. So that's a little bit different in my mind because there is some remediation that has to go on the site for the brownfield, which is a public benefit to have that site remediated. It says here in the resolution that there will be a local contribution from the city and DDA. Is that contribution coming from the city's brownfield fund, and has that yet been approved? Does anybody know?
The committee has voiced support. It has not gone to council yet. It will go to council at the next meeting.
And what is the amount?
Paul?
I have brought Matt on with us. We also have someone here from Zingerman's as well. Maybe if you want to bring that.
Yeah, and please, step up to the microphone if you,
Sure.
if you would.
I'm Matt Nod, I'm the environmental coordinator for the city. I believe the total TIF capture for the city is $800,000, $400,000 in interest, and another $200,000.
Oh,
I'm forgetting the last bundle.
Robert Warner across the judge. Thanks, Matt. Actually, the total, if you're just looking at the city millages, the approximate 10 mil enhancement and the 6 mil operating is about $400,000 in total city revenues that'll be kicked in addition to leveraging the other millages, the county millage, the jail millage, et cetera, et cetera. So the total is about $400,000.
Thanks. Maybe this is a question for, I think that's good for now.
Okay.
Thank you. Question for Susan. Has the DDA given support towards other brownfield applications before?
Yes, we have. Most immediately, there was a grant through the partnerships program for what was at that point called Ashley, Tierra on Ashley, and it's the project that was striving for a platinum LEED certification. And given the market conditions, they've not yet constructed, although we've been in contact with the city and the county, and there's a strong interest in seeing the project go forward. But we gave a contribution very similarly in the form of parking and other area improvements as part of it.
And that was to go to their match?
Was to go to their match.
Brownfield. Okay, thanks. And my last question is maybe to Roger, just to know if the committee discussed the amount that was going towards wayfinding, because I remember when we approved the wayfinding, we specifically left off private entities. We had a conversation about putting Zingerman since it's so much asked about, and it seems to me that doing signs to Zingerman's then opens us up.
No, I don't think there's any intention of doing that. We're adding additional signs, but they would be similar to the ones we have. They would not be calling out specifically towards Zingerman.
Calling out Cary.
They're calling out Cary.
That's in the resolution. Jennifer.
Yes. More wayfinding signs in the Carytown area, but not specifically to Zingerman's.
Okay, because it says on this letter from Zingerman's, I think, it says additional new wayfinding signs to Zingerman's, the farmers market in Carytown neighborhood, including a sign logo on the flat roof of the new addition for Google Maps to pick up. Okay. 10,000. So it doesn't say.
We in this committee we discussed doing additional wayfinding signs, but keeping the same criteria that we've used in the past.
So long as that's the intent. Thanks.
Gary?
Yeah, a couple of things. I strongly support this for reasons I'll say in a minute, but I just also wanted to clarify, and maybe I could be corrected if necessary. The brownfield aspect, I talked to Gary Bruder about it, and because I was wondering about the general public benefit for the remediation, and as I understand it, in the interest of full disclosure and clarity, there is a quirk or a facet of the Brownfield Match program which allows for the application when you're talking about redoing an old building or taking out a building, and it doesn't necessarily mean there will in fact be potential toxic remediation. Is that correct? So that we don't necessarily expect that particular benefit.
Correct. As far as we know, there is no contamination on the property like you would find in a phase 2 that exceeds generic residential criteria. Certainly, the property's been used for a long, long time. There may be something, but the basis on which the brownfield plan is established is the building at 322 Kingsley and the annex are both considered functionally obsolete, as is the opinion of the city assessor. So really what we're going to be doing is taking down a burned out building and rehabilitating a historic structure. That's the proposal. So that is the cleanup, along with a lot of the public infrastructure improvements, which will benefit not just Zingerman's, but the entire Carytown area.
Right, and I don't ask that to be critical, but I just didn't want anyone to think that we're also cleaning up a major toxic site, and that's really not what's happening. And as I understand it also, that is obviously above the board stated purpose of the legislature in offering that benefit for taking out an old unusable building.
If I may. Yeah, no, it certainly is. The law was amended in 2000 to specifically include functionally obsolete and blighted buildings, and creating kind of a core community, which the city of Ann Arbor is, where brownfield funds can be used for that type of rehabilitation.
Okay.
Gary, you are not in any way implying history is toxic.
That's right. Or that we're remediating. That's what it is. As far as the money goes, I never quite understood why, and I'm willing to accept it, why we've gone away from offering TIF, foregoing any TIF capture, as opposed to just quantifying it, putting it into a number, and offering that as a grant. In response to a question that many may have, which was posed by one of the speakers beforehand, I did some rough numbers. The way I understand we came to the 407,000 is there was a good faith estimate that is what the TIF capture would add up to over 15 years. although no real rigid time value of money analysis was done, if you were to take what a monthly payment would be for that $407,000, but extend it out into perpetuity, which is what a real TIF capture rebate would be, and then add what I figure is about 5.5% of your interest, you get roughly that number, somewhere between $400,000 and $410,000. So to answer that question, it may not be dollar for dollar or to the penny correct, but they're getting basically a 15-year benefit when a TIF capture would be a perpetuity, a benefit in perpetuity. So you add all those trade-offs off and get roughly that number. In any event, I strongly support this because I think that, I mean, as Paul said, Zingerman's is, just like the Michigan Theater, is one of the identifiable jewels in our downtown area. As I understand it, they're not holding this entire project hostage. It's been stated clearly that if we didn't give them money, that their project would go forward, perhaps without as many of the public benefits that they're going to be offering as part of the project, but it's still going to go forward. And I really believe that the way they've asked for the money and the way that we're looking at spending it, they really are going for improving the entire area. So I support it.
John Mullen.
I also support it. I do have a question and a thought about this. The question is, does this represent a match, a portion of a match of funds, or is it simply a contribution of funds?
It is considered a local match for the brownfields. Correct.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that.
Yeah, I think where this becomes most important is when the city's already talking about bringing the TIF that's capturable from the non-DDA portion, and then there's monies that are capturable that the DDA doesn't capture on the DDA parcel. Zingerman's is going on to the state looking for Michigan business tax credit, and it's there that the state is really looking, where that's all state funds. They're looking to see that, are the locals really putting as much skin into the game on this project? You know, they never like to be the ones that are paying more than somebody else. So, you know, what they have pushed back on a couple of other occasions is, well, the DDA is considering capturing this. Why aren't they investing? And so what this does is say the DDA is investing an amount equivalent to what their TIF capture is, investing in public benefits around the site. So I think that's the sense that it evens the playing field, and the state's in a better position to give the higher MBT credit.
Maybe a better way to put it is the state looking for a dollar-for-dollar match for what they'll contribute will be based on.
No, I don't think they're looking for a dollar-for-dollar match. What they're looking for is that the locals are contributing to the kind of maximum extent they can, and the state will then, because 20% MBT credit is the maximum the state can provide. I think the state ends up being I'd have to go back and look at the numbers for what the total would be, but with MBT, I think the state's providing more of the subsidy on this project.
1.2?
I'd have to go back and look at the numbers when you add in the MBT credit and what that's estimated at, but I think it's another $1 million on top of the 1.4, and half of that 1.4 is typically school taxes in that state. So they just want to see that the locals are doing as much as they can, and this does that, I think.
And the other piece for me is the one piece of this that I have some concern about is the portion for funding LEED certification. You know, for me, I don't know that we've had a good conversation amongst us about how to look at this moving forward. You know, to me, it does cross a bit of a line in that most of these things are clearly for public improvements out of the streetscape and so forth, and the LEED certification piece is something a little different in my mind. It's also a large dollar figure, at least as it's shown in the allocation for just doing the administrative part of it. So that component is one thing that I just bring up as a concern that has about a quarter of the value of this.
John?
I had a question about the LEED certification level that is being pursued.
One of the challenges is the cost of that, and so we're obviously been weighing the LEED certification versus just using that money to put more infrastructure in for greener technologies. We went through just a base LEED checklist, and right now we have silver without really changing anything to the building, and we can get gold pretty easily. So it will be one of the two is what we're considering.
Thank you. Thank you for your efforts on that. I guess one of my concerns on this, while I'm absolutely certain that if Zingerman says they're going to do something, they're going to do it. But this issue could come up again for us, is that we don't specify that LEED certification will be obtained in the way that I'm reading this resolution. We would be providing funding for actual LEED certification costs. And I guess I would be more comfortable with, and I would offer an amendment that would read, when providing funding for actual LEED certification costs, when LEED certification at no less than the silver level is achieved.
I would consider that a friendly amendment.
And Sandy?
Yes.
And I don't want to in any way back off from encouraging them to go for gold. But I know also that some of those costs can add up, and I again have great trust in this company that they will do their best to meet the higher standard.
Further discussion, Russ?
One small point, in the last resolve, I think there should be the word "be" after "will." It is anticipated that the cost for improvement will be taken from small.
Yes.
Square.
Good catch. And I'm wondering if we want to, rather than being estimated to be, if we want to say up to $407,000 so that we have a definitive number rather than kind of leaving it open-ended. I know it may not be friendly. I mean, that may be a significant enough of a change.
And I'm not sure, can somebody answer us, answer what that change might mean?
And there's a hard cap as opposed to an estimate.
Well, yeah.
In terms of matching.
In terms of matching, what Matt said is absolutely correct. The state is looking to make sure that the city and the DDA have got as much skin in the game as possible. And frankly, all of this is based on projections of values when the project is completed and inflation over time. I don't have a problem with the hard cap. The MEDC, I believe, will be happy with that as a number.
It means nothing.
So I would offer it as friendly if
so, could you describe
I can. So we have, back to it, in the first resolve, last sentence, with the value of this contribution, rather than estimated to be $407,000, up to $407,000.
How about instead of replacing it, it just is in addition to, so this contribution estimated to be and no more than 407,000.
Did you get that?
No more than. Yeah.
Estimated to be and no more than.
And do both of you consider that to be friendly?
I would consider that to be friendly.
Yes, I consider
Since you're the one who offered.
Minutes shall reflect she thought about
Excellent.
it.
Excellent. And I still
You still have the floor, yes.
In the Brownfield Committee, I felt this was important enough to ask at that point was the money that is approximately up to estimated to be $407,000 is about how much money it's going to cost Zingerman's to actually do the remediation work or the dealing with the functional obsolescence building within the historic district. They need to pick the building up, move it, renovate it, rebuild the foundation, and move it back. And the cost to do this, because it's in a historic district, is about $500,000. So I just want that to be noted, that that's another reason why I feel that this is a very good match for the brownfield money, is that those are real costs for them to do this and to maintain that building and to keep it part of the character that we've decided we want in that space. So I wholeheartedly support the friendly amended version of this.
Keith?
Pretty easy, because all of my concerns have already been addressed about prior leaf certification. And to me, it's like, we keep after looking at the mission of the DDA, and we're undertaking public improvements that will have the greatest impact in strengthening the downtown area. So as sort of on the other side of Carytown, as it were, a smaller anchor, I just wholeheartedly approve of this, and we'll be voting yes.
Jennifer?
I also very much support this resolution, but I have a couple more questions and maybe a couple suggestions to get this right where I can vote on it. Is there are any of the areas in front of or on the side of Zingerman's in the 5th Division improvement plan?
Yes,
Not
conceptually.
Not phase 1.
I'm going to try to do this so that the camera can catch this. What the board approved a couple of years ago, as we were looking forward, I'm going to try to tilt this. This is the board from that block. What is considered a part of the plan but taken out is phase 2. So we're doing phase 1, which are the gateways, the central area, and the improvements therein. The whole Carytown area we sort of held out as sort of what I'm calling phase 2. A significant part of this project was about brick. A signature element in the neighborhood that Keith is a part of, beginning at Kingsley and then going to Ann, is a repair of existing brick and adding more brick where there used to be and where we just sort of asphalted over. A key element of that is once you're in the Detroit Street and 5th Avenue intersection, there's no way you could leave behind the deteriorated brick on Detroit Street. Where Zingerman's is situated, it's rutted. It's clear that the storm drain has failed. So there's damage underneath the bricks, and so there's a lot of heaving going on. So as part of what we've approved as a conceptual plan, yes. But the cost of this, at rough estimate, I think we were looking even at the CIP for just the brick alone, not any other improvements, is about $1.8 million. So conceptually, we are all on the game plan for that. The significance of the cost, though, the need to work in conjunction with city staff on all the other infrastructure pieces. We need to work together with the farmers market. We took all those pieces and sort of set it aside for our next big project.
But what about the sidewalks and the sidewalk curb ramps that are going to be part of the work that we're contributing towards this Zingerman's project? I have a concern that we might do some work here to help out Zingerman's and make the sidewalk look nice as they're doing their renovation, and that at some point in the future, if the board were to approve phase 2 and the rebricking were to be done, we're going to be going back and redoing work that we did on the sidewalks and the curb ramps. Is there a way to avoid redoing our effort? Can we make the sidewalks and curb ramps consistent with our phase 2 so that we've already done a little bit of that work?
Absolutely, and everything you're saying is absolutely true. And the last thing we want to do is waste any dollars. And that includes anything that may be put in as trees and other elements. The biggest challenge actually will be those curb ramps, because it's on a brick street, and getting to the point where the grades and the slopes work with the ADA compliance is going to be tough with that brick street until we're actually in the intersection. So the best we're going to do is actually get it all to compliance today, and then when we come back with the street, there may be some adjustments, but they'll be minor compared to how they exist today.
Okay. I don't feel like I need to reflect it in the resolution, but I just want to make the note in the minutes that we have had this discussion, and that when the work is done, it will be consistent with this plan we have for 5th and Division, so that we won't be redoing an investment in this area. And if that is the case, it seems to me that we could actually exceed our contribution of $407,000 if we're in that area and we're fixing that work, that we might actually be contributing more. So I wanted to propose what I hope would be a friendly amendment to this, a wayfinding, that a question I asked about before. I would like the resolution to call out that the wayfinding is to the Carytown area, just to be explicit, so I don't know whether you would consider that friendly. Just adding the words to the Carytown area after wayfinding in the first resolve.
Fine.
Got so many scribbles on here. Wayfinding in the Carytown area, yes, I would consider that friendly.
Yeah, that would not be a bad idea at this point. Why don't you retwist both resolves?
Well, I possibly have another addition. So as I understand what we're doing, some of the support that we're giving, the $407,000, is actually just our direct expense. So we're not giving a grant to Zingerman's and then they're paying for the sidewalks. We're just going to be fixing the sidewalks. The only thing that I could figure out that was an actual contribution was the funding of the LEED certification. And so what question I have is related to our 2-year expiration on grants. I thought we normally would put that language in the resolution to say that it expired in 2 years, just so we're very clear about it if this project were held up for some reason. And I don't know whether we're going to limit ourselves to that 2-year deadline on making these contributions as well. So it's just a question to the board as to how we want to be able to say that, and if we want to put the language. It's a little confusing to me, so I don't know how we exactly word it, but.
And that's a good point. Have we've been including that language in
No,
resolutions?
we have not.
Or no? It's just
No,
a board policy.
By your policy, your board-approved policy, automatically the grant will be rescinded. The group can always come back by your own language. They could come back and ask for it again. So if it's not spent by the next fiscal year, so July 2012, if it hasn't been spent.
So we don't need a language in here. We just are letting Zingerman's know that it's going to be 2 years timeline. Okay, yeah. All right, so then I don't have any other suggested changes.
So, Susan, would you go ahead and read to us what you have
This is
as
good, because then you can double check me. Okay, so on the first resolved, the DDA shall provide assistance to Zingerman's Deli in support of its brownfield grant application by making improvements to sidewalks and sidewalk curb ramps in the area near the deli, providing additional wayfinding to the Carytown area, providing funding for actual LEED certification when LEED certification no less than silver is achieved, and providing contractor parking and staging with the value of this contribution set at, no, and then we went backwards, estimated to be and no more than $407,000.
Yes.
Does that read as you have it?
Value of this contribution estimated
to be and no more than
$407,000.
Thank you. Wait.
Could I call the question?
Of course. Of course you may. All those in favor?
Call the
question?
Just calling the question.
Aye.
Let's do one more time, please. All those in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Question is called. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution passes.
Just one quick thing. As the partnerships committee put on your work list a discussion about LEED certification. You know, I think it is something that I am concerned about setting a precedent and where we're going with that. And so I think it's something that's going to be moved before we get deluged with other requests of this type. It would be a good thing to have a discussion policy.
Indeed, what's a public benefit of...
Well, it usually happens.
What's the public benefit of having the LEED structure? You know, I mean, that's...
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's, yes.
I will propose that we pass that back to the transportation.
Roger,
Yes.
back to your committee
resolution. I hope I'm not going to set another record for longest committee report here, but we may. On page 16, there is a resolution to recommend a payment in lieu of required parking policy for the City of Ann Arbor as part of the 2009 downtown zoning amendments. And I would like to move the resolution for the committee.
Is there a second?
I will second the resolution.
Indeed. Discussion.
Yes, let me give a little overview here. First of all, this resolution has been rewritten since it went out in the board packet. I had not gotten a chance to review it before it went to the board and the board packet, and I had a few corrections and a little restructuring. So this is a somewhat modified resolution, although it has essentially the same elements in it. we were asked by Wendy Ramson in the City Planning Department to come up with a recommendation on how to handle the parking in lieu of, or payment in lieu of parking as part of the new A2D2 downtown rezoning. There is a provision for this payment in lieu of parking in the new zoning that was passed by City Council last year. But there was no action taken by City Council as to exactly what shape and form that payment in lieu of would look like. And again, we were asked to give our recommendations, and we discussed this for a couple committee meetings, and I will run through briefly what these recommendations are. That the developer and the DDA work together to formulate a long-term parking contract that will at minimum satisfy the city's requirements under Chapter 59 of the new zoning. The length of the contract should be for as long as is needed by the city, with the taking into the assumption that at some point the zoning may change, that requirement may change at some point in the future at some point. That the rate charged will be the standard monthly parking rate in whatever structure those spaces are located, and that they be a surcharge of 20% on top of the standard monthly rate. That the DDA work with the developer to determine where in the public parking system those spots will be located. That if there is a requirement for more than the minimum required under the zoning, that be handled as a separate contract. So we keep the contract that relates to the required parking separate from any additional parking contract that a developer may want to pursue. And any funds generated this are directed to the DDA's parking fund for both construction of additional parking and also support of alternative forms of transportation. I should point out that this payment in lieu of falls right in line with the Nelson Nygaard recommendations, that the parking system should be as much as possible publicly owned and publicly managed. So it can be managed in a manner that encourages alternative transportation, encourages the most efficient use of the parking system, rather than trying to place parking on every single site that might be developed. Further, there are restrictions on a number of sites because of simple size. The Denali project on Liberty is probably a good example of a building that's probably undersized by zoning requirements because the entire first floor is devoted to parking, and the major first floor element of the building is a garage door. This allows a developer other options rather than using small sites that would require the entire first floor to be parking and would be too small to be doing ramps up or down. And lastly, certainly as a part of being pedestrian friendly, Nelson Nygaard recommended that the fewer curb cuts in downtown, the more pedestrian friendly and safer it is for pedestrians. And that if you try to require every single development to put parking on site, you're going to end up with a lot of curb cuts and a lot of people cutting in across the sidewalks in a very heavily pedestrian area. So that's the basis of what we're recommending. I should emphasize, this is simply a recommendation to council. Council will have to make its own decision on what it wants to do. But this is our expert advice.
Further discussion?
The council asked us to do this, and so I think this is our response. It's a reasoned response, and we think it will work fiscally for us.
Jennifer?
I support this. As I said at our last meeting, I think that that this is a really good idea to allow flexibility within the system to take away some aspect of a project and move it to a publicly managed system, and for all the reasons Roger has stated about Nelson Nygaard, and that I do support this. I have one question about how this becomes part of city policy. Is this, so we're suggesting this to council, do then they take these recommendations, and is it going to be written into the to an ordinance, or is it simply like an attachment? I mean, just functionally, how will this exist?
I am not positive, but my understanding is that council would pass an amendment to or modify the existing zoning to incorporate this into the existing zoning. Again, the zoning already calls for a payment in lieu of parking, but there is no description of what that looks like. So I would assume that council will then put whatever they ultimately decide into the zoning ordinance itself.
I'm a bit concerned that the 20% surcharge is not going to be enough to actually reflect the cost of what it costs to take these parking. It's not going to be an equivalent cost to building the parking spaces and having them. It's going to be a benefit, and I'm a little worried about how. Well, first I'm worried about the number, and then also about how feasible it is to then change that rate in the future. If it's an ordinance, then it requires multiple council actions to change the ordinance, and how difficult is that going to be politically and practically?
Well, first, I would point out that the rate, what we're talking about, is the standard monthly rate. That will change. In fact, indeed, is going to be changing in September, and will continue to be changed. And as we put in transportation demand management, those figures will vary between parking structures, undoubtedly, in the future, and in a number of other potential ways. So that number will be constantly changing. That's why it's put in as just with a standard rate, with a surcharge of 20% on top of that. Certainly that isn't going to build a new space, although it will be a big chunk of it. But as I think we all know, we look at the parking system as a whole system, where the entire system financially supports new construction. For instance, on-street parking meters cost us almost nothing, but we don't want to just have on-street parking meters. So we use the revenue that all the system generates to be able to do new construction, which is what we're doing in the underground structure. After 20 years, or whenever the length of the bond is, those are paid off, we still have money coming in. So if you take a 20-year picture, no, it does not pay for itself. If you take a longer view, yes, it comes out ahead. A good example is the Liberty Square parking structure, which has the bonds paid off on. It's a relatively new structure and is far and away our most profitable structure. And part of it is because it is all monthly parking.
I think what the challenge is in setting the rate is a rate which is not so advantageous to the developer that it becomes this great bargain to them to do the payment in lieu of, and then secondarily not to become such a burden on the public system that we've created a system where all the developers are taking the payment in lieu, and then we're left actually having to build more spaces because we don't have the capacity. I think we have some balance where we don't really actually want to make more spaces. We just want to be able to flex the spaces that we have, but we'd like developers to take advantage of this fairly so that they're not building parking that's not pedestrian friendly and all of those things. So.
And to address that, there is no magic formula that can say this is the right thing. However, you have to remember that they're taking spaces that they have to then turn around and sell to their tenants, not at their location, at some other location. Yeah. There's going to be certainly a disincentive right there, because instead of taking an elevator right to my space, if it's in the building, it's somewhere else, and it's more expensive than.
Right, I hadn't thought about that. Okay.
So there is some disincentive to do it that way too. If a developer puts a parking on site, they can charge whatever whatever they can get from their tenants, and all the money goes to them. This way, they're committed to paying above the market rate, with no guarantee of where those spots are going to be located, and no guarantee whether there will be a market at that location.
Yeah, and I understand that this is really a guess until we put it into practice, and same with the affordable housing. When it was first done, a payment in lieu, it had to go back and be revisited, and that's why I just want to make sure that however it has to get revisited, it's not a difficult thing for council to do.
Well, since that's one of the reasons we put it in as a percentage. So, if we find out for whatever reason at some point in the future that this is not working, we are simply going in and changing a number of zoning. We're recommending, instead of 20%, let it be something else.
And Nick, I'll get you. Are you?
I'm
I just want to touch on that for a moment, because it also says that the monthly surcharges increase by...
Oh, that should have been.
And I thought we discussed not doing that.
Line should not be in there.
But rather just using it.
If I could offer a friendly amendment to my resolution.
Where are we, please?
On the fourth bullet point.
With the cost annually by a rate of inflation?
No. I'm taking it out.
You want to delete that?
I want to delete that.
Okay, then with to inflation, delete?
Yeah.
Keeping in and the monthly parking permit rate increasing?
Yes.
So the only, the increase is meant to be tied to the
monthly parking rate increase. That's why we put it in as a percentage.
So I consider that friendly.
Okay.
And
I
you
certainly
also?
consider it friendly.
Okay. Newcomb?
I have a friendly amendment that I share some of your concerns and can think of many examples, both what we've come up against and what we could come up against from a commercial real estate perspective. And given the political nature of this, I would hope this is viewed as a friendly amendment in that perhaps another bullet point that says the DDA is not required to enter into a payment in lieu agreement, and it is at board's discretion to do so. We can't build parking decks. Google comes along and says, we're going to build a building, but we're not going to put the parking, and we want it, and we're going to go by what this is. Unless the city allows us to build more parking, we're going to adversely affect. If we reserve the right based on wherever we may be, in our budget, in our supply, in our demand, what I'm worried about is once we put this down, we can then be put into a situation like we are with Village Green, or put into a situation like we were with Google. If we reserve the right, we won't, based on the needs of the system.
Well, I understand your point. I think it's a valid one, that we could be, future boards could be in a position where there would be a demand for parking spaces that the DDA simply would not have available.
Or would it come at the cost of others?
Can I?
I guess I would view friendly as language that said the DDA would enter into a contract if it is able to do so.
That's the point I would say. I would be worried about this becoming a way where we are now forced to enter into contracts where there are winners and losers.
Well, or a situation where we may need to add parking and they're not
able to.
Not able to. So I would consider that language if enter a contract if it is able to.
Lee?
Okay.
Jennifer?
Well, a question related to that, because if this is in the zoning, we may not have say as to whether they can do a payment in lieu or not. And a question for Joan or for John, my recollection of how the affordable housing payment worked was that it was actually a separate action taken. If the developer was requesting a payment in lieu of affordable housing, it was a separate consideration the Planning Commission gave to a project, and then it was then separate council action. And I don't recall specifically, but I think that's how it worked. And so it would be up to the discretion of Planning Commission and City Council as to whether the project could do a payment in lieu.
I think it usually came up in a PUD and it was part of the development plan. Yeah.
I would assume it would be similar. My just big worry is because we currently don't have the ability to add to the supply without council's approval. If we are now forced to give up parking to
I see your point. I'm not sure that.
Yeah. It would be a decision that City Council would make, and certainly not everyone would. I don't imagine everyone would have the ability to use this, and because the affordable, we don't always agree with the payment for affordable housing.
I would also expect that whatever we send here is not going to be on a stone tablet.
Will we have a chance to if they come back?
Yes, of course we should be shaping the policies we would like to see.
It's also, one of the whereases, it says that the payment in lieu is already allowed under the chapters. So it's allowed anyway, and
Hasn't been a number to
it
that.
just, yeah, hasn't been developed.
Could we just change I'm sorry.
Jennifer?
To just change what Newcomb was saying to make it to say that the DDA would request that we have discretion in the approval of the payment in lieu of? Because this is going to council, and so we're saying this is what we'd like the policy to be, and so we'd like to be considered, we'd like to be asked for our opinion when these requests go through Planning Commission and City Council.
I think if able to, we'll probably pass more muster.
If able to,
at our
okay.
discretion. Our discretion implies perhaps leverage and power that they may feel uncomfortable.
Okay.
Okay, John?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding, though. It seems as though there'd have to be an executed contract with the DDA before it could go through a planning commission and council approval. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding what we're all
It would probably go to the
saying.
supplemental regulations of the development agreement as they reach agreement.
Yeah.
And we can do the same with like contribution to the Parks Fund, contribution to the Greenway Fund. Any of these number of things would end up in the supplemental regs. If the contract wasn't executed, there would be some penalty that they would have to pay to the city if they built the building and did not honor the contract.
I'm just thinking the sequence of timing for a developer and how that works and how that works for us. We can respond. Okay.
John?
Just while we're on the subject, I wanted to ask Susan, because there's a lot of numbers involved with the underground structure. What are we looking at there per space for the actual parking?
The actual cost, because as many of you know, when we approved the resolution approving the project, about at least a quarter, maybe 30% of the project is unrelated to parking. We've got 3 water mains. We're doing a comprehensive electric grid reorganization, burying electric lines. We just moved the sanitary line for the library. There's a whole lot of support system in the deck for something that goes on top. So roughly the cost per parking space is in the high 50s. I'd say somewhere between 57, maybe 59,000 a car space. The project costs are larger. Maybe I think that's where you're going with your question. The total project cost is 50, but only 3/4 of that is parking related. About 25 to 30% is non-parking related.
And then the second question, the last time we added on or built above ground, what were we looking at?
Boy, at 4th and William, we added a floor. We were in the high 30s at that point, and that was approximately 4 or 5 years ago. We didn't add anything to the elevators. It really was just pure parking without a whole lot of other.
There was no footings or...
No footings, no foundation.
Right.
That's
I
concrete.
remember that basically above ground was approximately 45,000 and underground was 55,000 in terms of, the kind of generic.
Those are the numbers that I remember too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the industry costs across the board, it's not just us, the costs are greater. Labor costs being what they are, but steel and concrete.
Well, and also the site has an enormous impact on
How big it is.
how big it is, where it's low. Downtowns are significantly more expensive than building something out in a
And how
greenfield.
restricted it is.
Yeah, access. So those are very rough numbers, but each project will be specific.
Further discussion? John?
One thing that was talked about at the Transportation Committee too was the notion that this could be an attractive source of funding for alternative transportation. Obviously it's not going to generate a huge amount of money for building new parking structures, but I don't think any of us are looking to do that in the near future anyway. So that's something that we can think about as time goes on.
And we specifically call that out in the resolution.
Further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is adopted.
Oh, no.
There's numbers.
Now there's numbers. The resolution on page 17. Resolution to approve the second revised DDA budget for fiscal year 2009-2010. Would like to move the resolution. Committee?
Is there a second?
I will support this resolution.
Katie?
This is something we do every year and are required to do by state law, that to make sure that our expenditures do not exceed our budget. We've already modified the budget once to reflect changes primarily due to the construction of the new underground parking structure and the 5th and Division improvements. we have made a number of relatively small adjustments to bring the budget in line with what we expect our actual costs to be. I should point out there is one typographical error on page 19. Under general maintenance, general repairs, that should be $140,000, not $25,000.
I'm sorry,
140,000 under general repairs, not 25,000, for the total of 230,000. Most of these changes, and if people have specific questions, have to do with slightly higher costs, lower interest rates, doing a few projects. The major change is something we probably should have picked up on the first budget revision. The wayfinding signage has been added to this year's budget. We approved the wayfinding, I believe, last May of 09, after this budget had been already approved. And the expenditures we anticipate the expenditures on the wayfinding signage to be about $850,000 in this fiscal year. So we have modified the capital on page 19 under capital cost, capital equipment, from the $15,000 originally budgeted before wayfinding was in there to the $850,000 we are currently budgeting in our revised budget. Should also note on page 20, under grants, there's $400,000 that doesn't have anything a heading with it, or a line item with it. That is an Avalon housing grant. There are actually two grants, or one grant, but two payments, both of $200,000. Both have to fall in the same fiscal year, although they were budgeted as separate years. And again, those were, of course, board approved.
Is that in your north?
What?
Was that in your north, right?
I'm sorry?
I was just asking if that's
No,
your north, or is that something previous?
No, that's previous. Those
Okay.
are the rehabilitations for properties in the DD
Your north side. Thank you.
and several others.
And where is on page 20, both near north and the,
Well, they're not in
well, you have
this fiscal.
reserved and unreserved. So we have two reserved projects, right? So fund balance, and then you have a fund balance reserved and unreserved. So if they're not showing up in the first one, then why do you have the two? What is the difference between the two?
I think you're asking about the fund balance. This is 09, so we don't yet have for you the June 2010 reserved and unreserved.
This is,
So
the first one is the
Oh,
fund
oh,
balance of
sorry.
2008, and this is the estimated fund balance in 2009.
Got it.
At the area, 2000.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why are we reporting 2008 and 2009 instead of 2009, 2010?
this is a revision, so the form Joe had been using, and so as he's just bringing this back to show you where there have been changes, you saw this earlier, and it's not meant for any action, it's just information you'd received earlier, and it still remains on there. And at some point, when we get the June numbers in and they're audited, you'll see the June 2010 numbers showing. So this is purely, he's just reusing the same format as he'd used before.
Those are actual fund balances. He has not put in
Just so you can
an
see.
estimated fund balance. And when we get the audit, ultimately that would change into a hard number. I will be glad to go through the details of changes should there be a desire to. Again, other than the wayfinding, most of the changes are relatively small, reflecting, again, since we are on a cash basis, when we receive when invoices get paid, and that can, vary a lot depending on when we receive those invoices.
Are there questions? Is there discussion? All those in favor of adopting the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is adopted.
Okay, and lastly, on page 22. 3, the parking use numbers. Again, I will point out that hourly patrons are simply people going in and out of, pulling, number of people that pull tickets does not reflect how long they stayed or how long they paid, nor does it reflect the monthly the revenue of the monthly patrons, which is the vast majority of the users of the parking structures. Hourly patron numbers are off. The big chunk of that was at the 5th Avenue or Library lot because it's getting to be a big hole right now rather than a parking lot. So they're off 100%. Those hourly patrons haven't been replaced completely within the rest of the system, although somewhat, at least as hourly patrons. Again, revenue numbers continue to be up, partly due to the rate increase over the previous year. Overall, no signs that there's any slackening of demand. There's certainly probably a leveling of demand right now due to the economy, but there's nothing that we can see that looks like there's any decline in usage. Jennifer, go ahead.
What is your thought for the huge decrease at 415 West Washington? Is it just a seasonal fluctuation there?
I can speak to it. It probably, the fluctuations change. A year ago, the rates were a fraction of what they are. They were increased from, I think it was $30 a month to $80 or $90 a month. The hourly went from $2 entry to $3. So it could be that just some people are more price sensitive in the summer than they were. So that might explain some of it.
Nuance for parking around that area too?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, revenues are actually up at 415. It's just patrons that are down. So it's probably more monthly parking usage at that location.
I was going to say, did we change some monthly?
We changed the monthly rate of that structure. So the monthly rate went up, which increased the revenue.
So do we assume that those people are redistributed to other parking lots?
The hourly?
Since there's not a significant savings as there was before?
They're looking for free parks. They're looking for the free ones rather than...
Yeah,
spreading up into the neighborhood.
It's probably difficult, version on impossible to know what exactly, individual, all the zillions of individual choices that individual parkers make. And
I understand, but there's a 50%, there's a 50% increase in revenue, approximately.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but there's also a 50% reduction in use greater than a 50%. So it's not a trivial amount. Although I understand that in the whole system it's a trivial amount, but in that particular lot it's not trivial.
Yeah. I would have to go back to Joe and Mark and to get specifics of what changes have taken place, other than the rate increase of what specific changes have taken place.
Forward this to an economics class for the basic tenets of microeconomics stuff.
We could do that, yes.
Sandy.
A few months ago, and I see that Joe isn't here, but a few months ago, I had asked whether or not we could do a longer-term trending graph of usage. And I'm wondering if you'd gotten to that, so we can look at things. We can look at month over month, and it's nice to see because you're comparing what happens in May when certain things happen around town to certain things happen. But over time, I'd like to see how the hourly workers or the hourly parkers, the monthly partners, some of the different usages in the system. Wow.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. Take that. We were had a fairly full agenda at our last meeting, but we'll take a look at that and see if we can get some longer term. Sure. Putting things in as understandable form as possible is great. It's sometimes hard to know what that form should look like, but yeah, we'll see what we work on that.
Sandy, I would point out that the average length of stay numbers that are in here they're new. They're sort of an initial attempt to start to get to some of these other things. And we're not exactly sure what we're doing with them, what to do with them at this point. But over time, I think that's going to get refined.
And at one point, we had the number of spaces as well.
I think
has been replaced just on
the average. Yeah, I think the average length of stay bumped the number of spaces off the form.
Right. But I think that needs to be included when you're looking at the usage graphs, because we take large pieces out of the system in operation. You see a dip. It's nice to see that the space is dipped as well for that 9-month period or whatever. Something was closed, something else was new was open. So that would be fantastic. Okay.
We'll see what we can do. Any other questions of parking? I believe my report is thankfully done. The next committee meeting is Wednesday, July 28th at 11 a.m.
Thank you very much. Partnerships Committee, Sandy Smith and Russ Collins.
Sandy has asked me to do the reporting here today. I think it's revenge for me missing meetings and things like that.
Sir, if you're right.
She was up late.
But I'm happy to give the report. So there are 4 items that I would like to report on. One is the Energy Saving Grant Program. We are about to enter our 3rd year of this in the 2010-2011 year that we're about to begin, or that we just began. And we'll be using the 2 years worth of experience that we've gained to consider and consider making changes before we come back to you and propose any formal policies. And we will do that before the end of September. Last year, 13 energy audits were actually accomplished, and 4 owners have begun to think about their work in phase 2. Again, the way this program is put together is we offer a grant for downtown businesses to do an audit of their space, and then we also offer an incentive grant for them to actually accomplish the work that's identified in the program, in the audits. The 28 and 29 year, which is a year past at this point, 32 audits were completed, and again, that's approximately the value, the amount of volume for each year. We've gotten requests for over 30 audits in 2009, 2010, and we will expect about that many to be executed a year from now in the immediately past fiscal year. But 32 audits were completed, 17 buildings installed improvements as a result of the phase 2 grant, and $84,772 worth of improvements were made. The anticipated energy savings from these improvements are over $32,000 a year, which means that the payback for those improvements to the businesses will be made in about a 2.5-year period. Each time we get reports on this program from Dave Kunkel, it's very encouraging, and I would say that this is a very, very successful program that the DDA initiated in the 28-29 fiscal year 2 years ago. The Shelter Association, are there any questions about that? The Shelter Association of Washtenaw County approached us about the possibility of getting a significant grant to help them as they transition from very, very heavy reliance on government money, primarily state money or state money and federal money that is provided to them through the city or the county. And clearly those governmental monies are shrinking rather significantly. They view this as a trend that will not change, and they view that their budget is under threat in the long term because of the shrinkage. The management of the Shelter Association at the Delanis Center and their board are very, very excellent nonprofit managers. In identifying the shift, they are looking at strategies to maintain the level of services with this reduced amount of governmental money. And they will be, and they have started already to initiate private fundraising to fill the gap that they're perceiving is going to be a persistent gap. And they approached the DDA about providing them transitional funds over the next 2 years. So it would be this fiscal year, the fiscal year that just started, and next fiscal year, and approximately $150,000 a year for those 2 years as they increase their effectiveness at private fundraising. And so we haven't brought a resolution in front of you. We will continue to consider this. You all need to know that I'm in very strong support of this grant initiative. I think it is taking what they do is a great benefit to the downtown. The way that they're approaching problem solving in this period of diminished government funding, I think is very effective, and I think that the downtown will benefit, as will this particular very well-run local institution from grant funding from the DDA. And the primary reason that I think the DDA should consider this is because of the direct benefit to the downtown and how they are able to assist folks that use the Delana Center. This will be a bit of a shift in terms of how we deal with these kinds of funds, and we will get back to you with a resolution at some point in the near future in regards to the Shelter Association grant request. We've also talked over the last 2 meetings, and there was also additional discussion at the session that was held on May 28th, the special board meeting, frequently referred to as a retreat, on May 28th, about the allocation or reallocation of funds that we've given to another project that doesn't look like it's going to be executed, to providing additional police protection in the downtown. And so what we've requested is information, and that information was reported out on this meeting on the 28th. Downtown crime is essentially at very low levels, but there are a lot of questions about how the perception of crime what the perception of crime is in the general public. So we're going to do some more fact finding. For example, 86% of the people feel safe in the downtown at night. 96% feel safe in the downtown during the day. What we don't know is the 14% that don't feel safe. Is that a number we should be concerned about? It sounds like a small number, but it may be one of those things where, we know with parking, if your parking structure is 80% full, it is full. It is perceived as being full, and its ability to accommodate additional parking is diminished. What we don't know is what the percent of unsafe feelings is significant. Is it 14%? Is it 7%? Is it 20%? So we're going to do some more looking on that. And the police chief is coming to our next meeting, which is a week from today at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we would invite anyone to come and join us and ask questions that you might have. Newcomb, do you want to add anything to?
One other possible consideration that Susan and I were talking about that I guess we could just put on the table is the potential of a nighttime retreat where we all get some chaperones and walk the DDA at night just to see what it feels like and whether or not we as the perhaps inadequately informed people can see what starts to happen 10 o'clock at night. So
I would suggest that we go to a movie.
I know. I'm suggesting
after that.
I'm suggesting we walk down to West Park and we can
go to a movie at 7 o'clock.
A pajama party.
And then we'll all go cocktails at the outdoor.
Absolutely.
I'm just confused here. Why do we need chaperones?
Yeah.
I was wondering that myself.
Only Newcomb needs a chaperone. But
when we head down to Chapin Street, you'll see.
Okay. So if you wanna join us at the meeting next week on Monday at 9 o'clock, we'll talk more about that with the police chief. The term sheet, that Roger already reported on. I don't know that I need to summarize that anymore. Other than this, the reception of the City Council was very good. We're able to explore many of the areas in terms of the mutually beneficial dynamic that we would like to explore. Two items that have been essentially taken off the table are code enforcement, and this is from the DDA's point of view, and extending the DDA boundaries. Those are the things that we will not be pursuing, but everything else that we've talked about will be continue to have a dialogue with all parties concerned. And then I hope everybody remembers that that Susan has a fund, a grant fund that she manages, and she's able to give out grants of up to $10,000 from that fund within the budgeted parameters, which she's done in the fiscal year. And she recently gave a $10,000 grant to the combined downtown art fairs to encourage them for the first time in reality to market the art fairs as a single event. This is a huge community breakthrough, 50 years in the making, and we are very supportive of that and very supportive of Susan's encouraging them to jointly market this wonderful Ann Arbor Festival as a single marketing entity. I want to thank Sandy for all her work as the co-chair of the committee. Is there anything that I missed?
We have been assigned discussion for lead certification.
We both wrote that down, John.
And I would like to just throw two more things for the discussion, just if people have thoughts about it. One is the tree pits around town are looking really shabby, and I'd like us to kind of talk about and looking for low-hanging fruit in times that we don't have a whole lot of dollars to do things. And I am also seeing an awful lot of cigarette butts on the sidewalk, and I think that we could talk about as an organization helping some of the downtown businesses deal with the new issue of having all the smokers around the doors. Maybe we can help them with receptacles or something like that if they decide they're going to take cleaning that up. So I'd like to add those two things to the agenda.
We're making the whole downtown a no smoking area. Just kidding. Just kidding. Not constitutional or appropriate, but funny.
Yeah, so are you folks? John?
I just had a comment on the Shelter Association. I really applaud that effort that they're undertaking, but I just wanted to note that the city funding for human services has not diminished. It may have from other governmental units.
Thank you. I think the counties where they've actually seen a fair amount of reduction. My co-chair, Sandy Smith, and I look forward to seeing all committee members and any interested parties a week from today at 9 a.m. Right here, same channel, same place, for the committee meeting of the Partnerships Committee.
Thank you. Next, Transportation Committee, John Malott.
Well, in light of the time and the fact that Roger and Russ took an awfully long time, I'm going to fly through this. Go through this quickly. Nancy was good enough to give us an update on the commuter challenge. Went very well. More people, more companies. It continues to grow, and as a matter of fact, as an aspect of it is the start of a commuting club, so that people can keep logging their commutes and keep the momentum going. It happened to be actually one of the things I was asking about. She's already all over it, kind of extending this program throughout the year, which also would include looking at the creating awareness for a Tri-Transit Week in September. So as folks hear more about it, try to spread the word. Susan gave us a quick...
Is it T-R-I or T-R-Y?
Tri-Transit.
It's with a Y.
It's with a
Y.
Y. Give it a try.
Tri-Transit. Trying transit. Is that what you're trying to say?
Okay, bicycles.
They're just missing that.
He's trying to forge ahead. That's being docked from your next report, by the way, next month. Connector study update. Things are moving along on that. One thing that was very interesting out of the initial findings is that they're seeing that the amount of travel between Central Campus and North campus is tremendous, sort of the equivalent that you use for light rail ridership in a large city. So for what it's worth, that obviously is an initiative that's going to be ongoing, and we'll have to sort of monitor and see what that means for us. We had some conversations about bicycling. The Partnerships Committee was good enough to ask the Transportation Committee to look at the question about whether to have an annual bike rack design contest. And we're suggesting that it be put aside for the time being because one of the things that's happening right now is that Amber and Nancy are looking at doing the inventory of all of the bike racks downtown, what condition they are, where they are, all the rest of it, and seeing really more strategically what do we need to do to move forward. And we had some interesting conversation about is sort of a bike rack the right place to focus the efforts of artists and so forth. So I think it needs more discussion and be in the perspective of really what we're trying to do with a bike program throughout downtown parking. Related to that, we also had some conversation about bike lockers. That for those of you who don't know, the bike lockers are somewhat maybe underutilized. So we've had some conversations about looking at where they're located, who makes use of them. For instance, whether downtown residents, and whether there's a possibility to have open the use of it for downtown residents or not. And so that again will be part of looking at a little more comprehensive view of how to deal with bikes. Then the last piece I want to report on is that we had some initial conversations about AATA. We're still hoping that we're going to be able to meet with a couple of folks from their board to start that conversation up, to look at things like the development of the Blake Transit Center and related to it for our purposes, 4th Ave, to look at the idea of IPSI and Arbor commuting, the link, all those things that relate to AETA that I think we're anxious and ready to start having those conversations. So, hopefully quite soon here we can schedule that to get moving, and maybe in the fall look to start really having some momentum moving towards that. Obviously, as part of Blake in particular, they're going to be in the planning stages, so it's the time to do that as soon as possible. So that is my report. Russ?
I understand in all seriousness that the University of Michigan is very, very interested in, as you indicated, the North Campus and the mass transit growth in town. And I just wondered if your committee has anyone that is connected to the university in terms of just keeping in touch. And
I think both Roger and Susan may be able to speak to that.
And in particular, with the Connector study, the University of Michigan is providing a significant portion of the funding, and in fact had a conference at the end of this school year, specifically around transportation, because they saw what was going on with not only this initiative, Fuller Road, the North University Transit Station. They're very much focusing on transportation. We're talking between the Connector study and busing and bicycling and Get Downtown initiatives pretty much on a weekly basis with U of M. We definitely will benefit from working together.
Russ, also just for what it's worth, is change in leadership going on too with their retirement. I think
Dave Miller, he's been
Dave Miller, is it an interim though, or is he now? Is it a permanent replacement? Okay.
And I believe it'll hit the press today.
Okay. So that might also sort of feed into the momentum and the knowledge base for moving this forward. Any other questions? As far as the next meeting date, Susan, I'm going to be gone in August, so maybe we'll have to see whether or not folks want to take a month off, whether it be in July or August. Tentatively, our next meeting is July 28th at 9 a.m. So we might try to do a little bit of a feedback loop with folks and see what vacation schedules are looking like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The capital improvements reports, the South Fifth Avenue Underground Parking Garage, Saturday, June 26th, it says a massive amount of concrete was poured.
Oh my goodness, it was amazing.
1,480 cubic yards, which is about 150 trucks unloading. That was for the footing in the east leg, and columns and walls are being formed above that footing at this point, and mass excavation, I always have trouble with that word, continues along Phase 2 area. So again, things are moving along nicely. Dewatering is going to begin next week. They're getting down to the point in terms of elevation that water is being run into. So the dewatering will, with the forced main up to State Street and over to the river, will begin next week in all seriousness. Water main installation at intersection of South 5th and Liberty was completed, and they will be abandoning the old water main and completing that project next week. 5th Avenue and Division status. Landscaping work continues along 5th and Division. Work in anticipation of Art Fair will continue for the next 2 weeks. Light poles are being installed on 5th, and brickwork will resume next week, finishing all planters prior to fair. And that's what I have. Given that all these projects are going forward smoothly and there is no more planning to be done at this point, we will not have a Capital Improvements Committee meeting next month.
Oh, all right.
This month.
This month.
This month.
July.
Our next meeting, thank you.
Okay.
And Sandy?
Just briefly, you've got some major projects going. Are they looking like they are on time and on budget?
They are looking like they are on time and on budget.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Newcomb.
Things are starting to slow down. Could perhaps the next time we meet have a review of some of the things that have been pushed to the back burner, alleys, for example, to see what, if anything, we can do and when, if anything, they can get back in the queue.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Other DDA business matters. Would anybody perhaps like to move that we the board not meet in August?
So moved.
Second.
Choose one. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our August DDA board meeting is canceled. Other DDA business matters.
One of the things, and I hope you'll indulge me for just a moment, that I wanted to say before the question was called a while back, had to do with the fact that I thought the vote that I certainly made, and the vote that we took on Zingerman's was something special. There's only one Zingerman's in Ann Arbor, and it's the most philanthropic company that I know of. And what I really respect about them, and one of the reasons that I was happy to vote for this, is they've had a tough time, and I think there was a lot of disappointment in the city when that I heard from people who were very disappointed when Zingerman's original application of the historic district wasn't approved, and I applaud them for going through this and sticking with it. They could have easily moved to another location. Zingerman's is a powerful enough business that their clientele would have gone with them wherever they went.
That's right.
People would have crammed into their store no matter where it had been, and they certainly could have found a less expensive location. But they are an anchor in this part of the downtown, and I really appreciate their work, and that's why I was willing to support this. And it's something I wouldn't have done for just anyone.
I apologize for calling the question, Mr. Mayor, but I agree with everything he said. I mean, he's very eloquent.
Anything else? No? Is there anybody in the audience who would like to address the board? Nancy?
Hi, Nancy from the Get Downtown program. I just wanted to, as you always think about your parking and kind of look at how that's going, I wanted to again continue to let you know that Go Pass trends continue to increase. We saw about 41,000 ridership numbers of 41,000 rides in May, which is the last time we got the numbers, which is really high. It continues to be increasing over every year. And every time we have a new business come in, Pink Pump and This and That, for example, who are both not even open, have already called us to get Go Passes. So again, just trying to reiterate and to thank you for the funding that you give for this program, because clearly we have businesses that are coming in who see the value in offering different benefits to their employees, especially many of these employees that are in the retail and restaurant business, where the employers aren't going to be able to afford to pay for the parking. This provides them with a really nice option. So just letting you know that the program continues to be successful. We have a lot of support from the businesses, and we have word spreads very quickly. We don't really have to do much marketing because we see that people see the benefit of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? And before somebody moves adjournment, I remind you that we have our annual meeting immediately following, so don't scamper away. Would somebody like to move to adjourn?
Move that we adjourn.
Roger, seconded by
I'll support that.
Lee. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. And immediately calling to order our annual meeting. Susan, would you take the roll?
Sure, the annual meeting of the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority, July 2010. Roll call. Gary Boren.
Here.
Newcomb Clark. Russ Collins.
Here.
Lee Gott.
Here.
Jennifer Hall.
Here.
Roger Hewitt.
Here.
John Heetcha.
Here.
Joe Lowenstein. Here. John Moa.
Here.
Keith Orr. Sandy Smith.
Here.
John Split.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. New business, nomination, election of DDA board officers for 2010-11. First, for treasurer, would anybody like to nominate?
I'll nominate Roger.
Roger Hewitt. And I'm sorry, do I need a second here? I don't think.
Second,
Yes?
second the nomination.
Okay, we will second the nomination. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Sandy,
Okay.
are there other nominations?
I move unanimous ballot for Roger Hewitt for treasurer.
Is there, do we need a second to
Say
that?
it. All in favor?
All in favor, okay.
Aye.
No. I abstain.
Okay. Next, secretary. Nominations?
Joe, who's over there?
Joe?
Nominate Russ Collins.
Is there a second?
I don't know.
I'll second that nomination. Great question.
Seconded. Are there any other nominations for secretary?
I mean, Russ and I are both going to be on the executive committee.
Not yet.
We don't work very well together, you know.
Oh, yes, you do.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
Nominations for vice chair. Joan?
I can nominate Gary Boren.
Is there a
Second.
second? Second. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Gary Bourne, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain. I abstain.
You don't have to abstain for yourself.
And for chair?
I'd like to nominate Joe Lowenstein.
Second?
Second.
Sandy? Are there any other nominations for chair? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. We have our next treasurer, secretary, vice chair, and chairperson. The DDA committee is to be reappointed for 2010, 2011. They're on your sheet. Would anybody like to make any changes to those committees? Remove themselves, add themselves? Changes in chair? Jennifer?
Would just like to add myself to the Transportation Committee.
Okay.
I don't know why you're not on that, but yes, absolutely.
And anybody can come to any meeting and
Of course,
participate at
yes,
any
and I think
level.
everybody knows that.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the committees and chairs set. Anything else?
I think this is my time. Every year, this is a chance for staff to say thank you to you as board members. I made a note just so you can allow me just a few minutes. This year was a very busy year. We spent a lot of time on a few very big projects, and it's sometimes very hard to go backwards and remember what we did. But just to give you a sense of 5 things that were big this year that you all accomplished, which is in itself something pretty important because you did it as a group. Remember that parking and transportation strategies report? all of you in committee spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours on that report. It was a significant effort on our part. We received the request and were able to respond to it accordingly, and it took a lot of work, and I want to thank you. Our energy saving grant program is something that was called out. I don't know if everybody understands just how many businesses and buildings are now more sustainable, not only environmentally but also financially. They're making a go of it, and that's a big deal because we were able to do a lot this year. After 25 years, we do have our first parking structure under construction, but a big piece was mentioned earlier: new water mains, new electricity, all sorts of new infrastructure. These are things that we're, all of us as a community, going to benefit from, and a lot of your time we're spent in committee to make these things come forward. For my heart, one of the most important things, after 7 years of planning, 5th and Division is now under construction. And I think today, even today, before the bike lanes are striped in, you can begin to feel just how much more pedestrian friendly and how much more attractive the center section of our city is. If you walk around, for instance, Liberty Plaza Park, feel how different that feels than the highway, the freeway it was just a very short time ago. It's a lot of work, and all of you did this as volunteers. And then last but not least, I think it's also worth noting this was a tough year for the city. And not only was the $2 million discussed and sent over to the city, but the 2 parking lots and the revenues from those 2 parking lots were given over to the city also in support. And that was a lot of work that everybody put in to find their way to helping. And I just wanted to make a note. As staff, Joan and I are here. Amber and Joe are with us in spirit, but as staff, we wanted to thank you because you've done that all as volunteers. You don't often get known as that. You are volunteering your time in support of your community, so thank you. This is also my chance to say thank you to our outgoing chair. We every year have a chance to have a different chair, and it's been a lot of effort on your parts. Many of you who are around the table have helped me in the past. This year in particular, John had to step to the plate with 2, not 1, but 2 major construction projects. I called John, sometimes it was on an hour-by-hour basis. It wasn't just, the monthly meetings and even the weekly meetings. It was, I had his cell phone number on speed dial, and he had to get a call from me. Could you help? What do you think? Would you be able to stand with me if I make a decision? I want to say thank you. I don't know that we could have gone as far as we have to be on time and budget if you hadn't stepped up as you did. And every year I am known for my little gestures, little tchotchkes, nothing major. This year though, and I've asked, Pat Hodges is here from Chrisman. He has helped me to put together your little tchotchke for this year. So bear with me while I go get it.
Be very afraid.
Those cement trucks.
It's being delivered to your home as we speak.
And just to let you know how thorough they are, we've been working on this. They actually sent it to me in a box with wrapping paper. Now, being the person I am, I thought, oh, John doesn't want wrapping paper, so I've saved it for somebody else. So you get it with bubble wrap.
Perfect.
Okay?
Yes.
So we're going to give John a chance to unwrap it. You have scissors so you can cut through. And again, I want to thank Pat and his staff, Angela Bailey, who helped us with our groundbreaking party. So a lot of creativity and a lot of good effort on their part.
Minutes should reflect this is the first tombstone given.
It's actually a dinosaur bowl.
You have to do this in front of people. There are no dinosaur bones. Let the record show there are nothing found.
No oil?
Nothing. We're not finding it. Yeah, no oil. The Gulf leak hasn't gone.
It's a big piece of oak, I can tell you that.
Everyone else is finding fireball.
I want to see how Dave is going to spell tchotchke.
How he's going to do tchotchke, that's right. And just so you know, this is planking from the excavation as we are shoring the walls.
Oh my word.
We pulled out a piece of the planking.
Wonderful.
Now, and as I love puns, there was just no way we couldn't use the word split, as in chairman of the board or split board. It just lends itself naturally to you, John. So
it's better than block of wood.
That's really cool.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I would just like to say that I've enjoyed the year very much and working with our very fine staff and our very fine board. And it was an experience, and it was a very enjoyable experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
And,
I close this meeting, or does the new chair close this meeting?
I think you do. You're the one who finished.
All right. Could somebody move to close?
Move we adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.